welcome to part one. This part is going to be all about setting up, making sure that the supervising driver are going to know exactly what they need to do before going out with a brand new learner or existing learner. I would still keep watching this video if you are a learner driver who's with an instructor at the moment. The reason being is because it's going to give you some idea as to what to be expecting in terms of techniques and the structure of your lesson. So the first thing we need to look at is making sure that you're fully insured to drive. Now I will put some links to learner driver insurance companies in the description. Also making sure that you've done the eyesight check. So you need to make sure that you can read a number plate from 20.5 metres and that there is no penalty points or anything that's prohibiting the driver on the driver's provisional licence from actually driving on the road. It's important to remember that whoever is in the driving seat has the responsibility, and if you were to get caught speeding or driving through bus lanes or whatever it might be, the fine is for the driver and the driver will be held accountable. The trick is, from a trainer's perspective, is that you are going to judge the correct practice areas and judge where the learner's skill level is at and coordinate the training in such a way that things like that are kept to a minimal chance of actually happening. So talking about practice areas, if you're a parent watching this or a supervisor of any kind, start small. Think along the lines of a nursery area, if you like. If you were training a dog, you would do it in little stints, wouldn't you? You'd let it off when there's nothing around, first of all. You know, and so it's that kind of structure that we need to be looking at, really, because we need to keep everybody else safe around us, and we also need to keep ourselves safe in the car and make that learning experience fairly smooth and simple. Try and look for an area that's got quite wide roads. Try and look for somewhere that's reasonably local if it's possible. So fairly wide roads might be good, as if you're the supervisor, to do a little route round first. Just have a good drive around the blocks and just see what sort of things are around and the kind of hazards that could come up, because depending on what style of learner it might be, it might not be suitable, because sometimes we get learners who are really nervous. Remember that we are practicing skills, not subjects, and that's the way you want to think of it. So the old way of sort of learning to drive is first we do move off and stop, and then we do junctions, and then we do lights, and then we do roundabouts, and then we do this, and then we do that. Don't move on until you feel that the skills are in place, because if the skills aren't in place, it's going to give the learner a really hard time in feeling comfortable. If the learner doesn't feel comfortable, the practice isn't going to go as it should do. Things are going to go wrong because it clouds the mind and it clouds the thinking processes. So what do I mean then by skills and not subjects? Well, what I mean is, if a person is still not setting gas before finding bite and moving off just with bite alone, if somebody's still not understanding mirrors and using them effectively, if somebody's not gauging the brake correctly, is stopping shy of the give way lines in an abrupt manner, the risk is already greater because of the areas that need working on, but it's going to be even much greater. You're going to feel stressed, they're going to feel stressed. The environment for learning shouldn't be as such. Okay, so that's what I mean by skills. It's not that they can't do roundabouts, for example, it's that they're not slow enough to actually have a look on the approach. So it's speed you need to deal with. See what I mean? Core skills, all right? Now, there is a rough subject order, which is kind of a logical pathing. So what I will do, I'll put that as a PDF for you to download so that you've got that rough order and that rough structure for you to follow. And so that will help you to help your learner driver along this journey and help you to structure a little bit. There's also some books that I would strongly advise that you read. If there's any questions that need answering, they will be answered from these books, okay? The first one is Driving the Essential Skills. Now, as a driving instructor, this book is the Bible. We call it DES for short. It's got everything in that you need, and it's brilliantly put together. It gets better every year. They update it every 2-3 years, but definitely have this with you. Also, I'd recommend the highway code, only a couple of quid, and also know your traffic signs. If there's everything you're unsure of, and I don't know everything, I don't think anybody does, and if they claim to, then be suspicious. Just rip the book out, get some signs up, get some markings up, and you can find out and work it out together. So I definitely recommend that you get those, and again, I'll put some links in the description. Okay, so I'm going to go over some instructional techniques now, just a few things that you can use to structure your teaching. Now, I know you're not qualified, and I know you've not been on an instructor training course. However, people do learn to drive from parents successfully in the most, so it can be done, and you don't always necessarily need to be an instructor. It is considered best practice. The techniques that I would share with you right now would be you look when they look. So I'm going to simulate now, I'm in the passenger seat for this reason. When you're approaching a junction, so let's say we're about 2 car lengths away from the junction right now, the natural instinct is to start looking. If you start looking, you'll prompt them to look, and you won't actually understand where they are actually with their understanding. So you wait, and you've already had a little sneaky look. Don't forget that, you've looked partially. Wait for it, wait for it, wait for it. Once their head starts, turn with them. That way you know what they've seen, when they've seen it, and also what they haven't seen. What a lot of drivers will do is they'll look right and they won't look left. So you look right and you're thinking, right, I'm waiting. I'd normally check my left ear now. I'm waiting, I'm waiting, I'm waiting. Oh, they're still staring to the right. I know that because I look when they look. Also make sure that they're scanning the road and looking forwards along that journey. So it'll be right, forward, left, left, forward, right. Really, you want a minimum of 2 glances each side before you go, to be absolutely sure, to look out for things that are harder to see, like bikers in plain clothing and things like that. Also a little system, when you give an instruction, the instructions would be take the next road on the left, take the next road on the right. Use words like that. Don't say turn left, turn right. Be specific, because it's like your disclaimer then. If something goes wrong, you've got to say, well, I did say. You need to listen, you know, because if it was a sat-nav or the examiner speaking, they need to be able to listen. So next road on the left, or second road on the left, this one being the first coming up, you know, things like that. If it's a hard junction, use markers, use things like, oh, it's the junction just after the red van. Do you see the red van? Get confirmation from the person that's learning to drive. Basically, you want to be learning MSPSL, mirrors, signal, position, speed and look, because that's the routine that really everybody should be following on the approach to junctions, alright? So MSPSL, when you get driving the essential skills, it'll all be in there. Make sure you understand it basically first, and then you can relate their driving to what you'd normally do based on the system. The system will be based on the driving test, if that makes sense. So eyes, hands, feet when you give the instruction. So, all right, John, you take John. All right, John, take the next road on the right. So you're waiting for the eyes. And you want to be just making sure they check the centre and they check their right. So you're waiting for the eyes to move. And then you're waiting for the hands to signal based on, if it's appropriate, based on distance. And then feet. So you're watching the feet, making sure they cover the brake, that they're covering the clutch, ready. You're thinking, right, are they doing this now? Get it. Thinking about it early. Don't leave it too late, because especially because you're probably not going to have dual controls, are you? So you need to be really, really up to date with what you're going to say and when you're going to say it, and you almost need your cut-off points in your mind where you would take action. Talking about taking action, that leads us on to the next thing, risk management, right? So agree who's going to do what. In the early stages, it's probably going to be lots of instruction, and you need to make sure that you can almost drive the car with your words. You need to be able to drive the car with your words, because when they really need you, they really need you, and that's why it's important that you don't be going into areas that aren't appropriate for the learner's confidence and for the learner's skill level. Let's keep talking about control for a little bit. Sometimes things start to get a little bit up in the air, all right? So it's important that you ask somebody to pull up on the left at a safe, legal and convenient place. Pull up, take control of the situation, take them out of that situation, discuss what the issue is, what's happened, why it was wrong, and give a remedy. So the system that you'll be using all the time is identify a fault, analyse the fault, why is it a fault, and what's the danger, and then the remedy. How are we going to put it right, and how are you going to help the learner to put it right? So remember that system: ID, analyse and remedy. Don't let anything slip, because if you do, it'll come back to bite you. Get it nipped in the bud in the early stages. I'm also, in terms of control, I'm going to put a PDF download as to a list of control phrases and instructional wordings that you can use and learn for when you're taking out your learner. Really, that's just a rough guide on everything that you're going to need to be doing. So probably not a bad idea for you to get your learner driver to watch this short video as well, because it'll give them some idea as to what you're doing and why you're doing what you're doing. Basically, if you tell somebody to do something, you need to be able to back it up with substance and a reason why. When you're training, the biggest thing I could say is don't forget the whys, or else they ain't going to learn, and they're going to keep repeating the same mistake potentially. And keep that risk management at the tip of your mind. Alright, safety first. I hope this video has been useful, and I will see you again in the next video, which is the controls setting up leading on to when we actually start moving. Hope it helped, guys.